Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Yeah.
You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show till Mets do us part. John from Brooklyn, Gibby reps NJ. We're the other team, I don't care what your friends say. Mets fans, we focus like a sensei. Listen to the podcast Monday, Wednesday. Made a couple bad plays, but we still won. Character, yup, we're gonna build some. Are you gonna check the pod? It's real fun. Just like Mookie, I will, son. So invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show.
Available now on all streaming platforms. If you love the New York Mets, check out Till Mets Do Us Part. Enough rapping. Let's get to yapping.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Til Mets Do Us Part. We are live on YouTube, live on Twitter, like we are each and every single week. Although this week, coming to you a day early for a myriad of reasons, which we will get to throughout the show. But the timing of this one works well. John Saponaro from out in North Hollywood, California. And that means my co-host, Matt Ibanez, holding things down back on the East Coast in New Jersey, which is where I will be. Well, not New Jersey, but the East Coast, which is where I will be starting tomorrow afternoon. Ibby, we opened up last week's show, our first week back together in like 6 weeks or whatever it was, a little differently than me asking you just how you're doing. I'm going to do the same this week. I don't mean to change things 2 weeks in a row, but we have to address the fact that this is episode 200 of Til Mets Do Us Part. So happy 200 to you. Happy 200 to the show. And with that said, how you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good, John. Happy 200 to you as well. And happy 200 to the A1 day ones that we've had. And happy 200 to the ones that, join us a little bit later along this journey. But either way, I'm sure we'll end things, we'll end this show with some nice words about everything up until this point. But I'm doing well. Weather's turning somewhat over here. Finally, it's crazy how it goes from 60 degrees one day to 90 degrees the next. But either way, doing well, keeping it together. I know a lot of Mets fans are kind of losing it right now. So this therapy session is definitely needed coming off of the off day after an awful, and we can both admit it was a god-awful, ugly, boring series against the Rays. Just didn't show up. First time all year that they get swept. First time all year where it just felt as though that they weren't going to win at home, which is crazy because up until this point, we felt like they were never going to lose at home. So all things considered, I'm doing well. Ready to talk some Mets. It's Tuesday. And the red lights on. My whole week's going to be screwed up now because I'm going to think it's Wednesday. Tuesday, red lights on. Room starting to fill up. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, we got about 50 folks in here, and that number will continue to grow, like we say every week, as the show rolls right along. We're happy to have whoever can be here with us. And yeah, it'd be, a little bit of different things going on this week. Before we get into that, though, let's shout out the chat really quick. I almost forgot. Mr. Nobody is here. Stanley Babbage. We got Clink in the house. Odd Villain. Shout out Odd Villain. Carlos Ramos. We got Rudy Olguin. I want to say it is. Rudy O-L-G-U-I-N. Yeah, I believe so. Shout out Rudy, who's here. Let me know if you're still here, Rudy, if I said your last name correct. We got Brad. Armand is here. Hebrew Hammer. And that's it for people actively talking in the chat. But again, I'm sure that number will jump up. Carlos Ramos saying congrats on 200. Glad to have been here for most of them. We were happy to have you here for most of them. We have Brad saying 200. Let's go. We have Odd Villain saying happy 200. And Clink saying hell yes. Congrats on 200, boys. We appreciate all thank you. Ibby, like I said, this show this week comes at a really good time to move up a day, and I wish I could say it's because we found out about Tyler McGill and we got an update on Kodai Senga, and heading into the Braves series, it seemed like the perfect time to move a show up and preview the series, talk about the injuries, and that's solely why we did it. I would never lie to the audience like that. That's not solely why we did it. The timing just happens to work out that way. The reason why we moved the show up is tomorrow I'm going to be flying to the East Coast to do some work over the weekend. And it's going to be all day. It's right in the middle of when we would record. And just considering Ibby and I jumped back together last week for the first time in a month and a half, I didn't want to do the show separately. I didn't want Ibby to have to jump back in and do the show solo. And also with it being episode 200, I didn't really want to do the show separately or in a different way. And so it does work out, although some bad news to talk about. A lot of stuff to talk about here, and I'm happy that we're doing it on Tuesday instead of Wednesday. I'm happy that we're doing it when we find out about Tylor Megill, when we find out more about Senga, and leading into the Brave series than kind of right in the middle of that Brave series. That being said, let's talk about Tylor Megill because that just happened 20, 30 minutes ago, an hour ago, whatever it was. I saw it when I was on another call. So I don't know exactly when the news dropped, but just a couple of moments ago, really, for public consumption. So Ibby, look, Tylor Megill has sort of turned back into a pumpkin the way he usually tends to do in May and June. Very strong numbers in March and April, very bad numbers in May and June. Every time we think we've reached a threshold with Tylor Megill where he won't fall back, he does fall back, in danger of losing his rotation spot. Then Senga gets hurt. Looks like he's got 9 lives again. And now he gets hurt, and that puts the Mets rotation in a bad spot, at least in the short term. So what are your thoughts right now on Tylor Megill? And honestly, bigger picture, where this leaves the Mets rotation right now, June 17th?
Shout out to Armand real quick for sending me that DM that he just mentioned in the chat, saying how Anthony DeComo just put out a tweet saying how it's best case scenario 4 to 5 weeks. Obviously, nobody likes hearing elbow sprain. That just feels like Tommy John to me, is around the corner. That's the way.
So he's a precursor. Elbow strain, forearm tightness.
Never a good thing.
Those 4 words.
No, and so I mean, it's been rough. It's been rough sledding for Tylor up until this point. The game on Saturday against the Rays was just overall ugly. Couldn't get anything going. Couldn't get out of his own way. Clearly dejected as he walked off the mound. Just didn't have it. And overall, it's gotten to the point where, Tylor seems to have like this voodoo magic when it comes to holding on to that spot while others get injured. It's like, okay, Tylor's going to remain. He's going to remain. But now he's going to be out. And now it's about figuring, how is this team going to go about handling the depth that they have? The wording of the tweet of Carlos Mendoza's words saying how, the Mets are hopeful and praying that Frankie Montas can show something in his next start tomorrow. It's not the wording that you want to hear from a team, especially when you hand him the money and the contract that you did. So hopefully Montas can show something, and then they'll have the spot start on the Friday coming up, and then roll into hopefully Montas the following go through in the rotation. But it's getting to a point where the Mets are being tested. And even though Tylor's been rough, it's not something that you want to see, especially not another injury. So, having this happen, it's going to allow us to at least see what the rest of the depth can provide. I'm not sure who it's going to be, if it's going to be Blade Tidwell, if it's going to be the likes of Nolan McLean. I don't know if they have the guts to call him up yet, if they're just going to go with a bullpen game with Brazoban and Waddell and things of that nature. But in general, you don't want to see someone get hurt. You don't want to see the depth get attacked even more coming off of the Senga injury. But all in all, I have faith in the lab. I have faith in the process as I've had to this point, but it's getting to a point where it's really testing Mets fans. I can tell, because they're getting worried, because as more and more guys fall off the map, they're starting to see, do we have enough? Is there enough people here? Should we start, making some phone calls to get some more fresh blood in here?
Yeah, look, there's a lot to unpack with what you just said. I did see a tweet where Mendoza said that whoever gets the spot start on Friday will be a one and done situation, and then they'll reevaluate. That is, what's his name? Justin Hangeman, whatever.
Right, it's another name, yeah.
Here. That was a guy who was mentioned, who's been up here before. That would be his day, and a lot of people are kind of alluding to the fact that Mendoza coming right out and saying it would be a one and done situation means they'll probably just pick the guy who's due to pitch on that day and then reevaluate whether it is, Tidwell, whether it
Tidwell's
is
on 4 days. Tidwell's on 4 days rested that day.
Yeah.
McLean is supposed to pitch that day.
Yes. I mean, after that as well, whether
Right.
it is McLean, whether it is, I just found out, by the way, his name is pronounced McLean, not McLean.
Really? Oh,
Yes. I did not know that. It
I
reads
keep on saying the wrong
McLean,
thing.
but I
Yeah.
guess, yeah, me too. I literally
Yeah.
just found that out that it's McLean. But yeah, it looks like McLean, whatever. Anyway, some people are calling for that. Hebrew Hammer mentioning it in all caps. Look, I think it's not going to be, McLean on Friday. We're not going to see him then. We could see him maybe, as this injury. Look, they're saying that Senga's probably 5 weeks. Now they're saying that Tyler is probably 4 to 5 weeks. Over the course of that time, could we see Nolan McLean? Maybe. Are we going to see him on Friday? I would severely doubt it. I think they go with one of the things you've mentioned, have Waddell start, and somebody back him up, or have an opener, Brazaban, then bring in Waddell, maybe call up Hangeman, maybe, piggyback 2 guys who can go extra innings with, Hangeman, and then go to Kranick or something like that. I think they're going to cobble it together just because I think this has been a little bit of, it's a little surprising to them. I don't know that they expected this to go this route. But one thing I will address here is Carlos Ramos saying this is a phantom injury for Tyler. I'm not buying it. This is just a way to disguise giving him time off without having to demote him. The reason why I'm going to disagree with this is a couple reasons. One, Tyler McGill still has options. So this is not a DFA or bust situation. He has one option remaining. Second of all, Tyler McGill was already on thin ice until the injury happened to Kodai Senga in terms of losing his spot in the rotation at best, getting sent down at worst. And, the last thing, Ibby, is that they don't really have anywhere else to go once Senga gets hurt. They can't really pivot off of McGill, whether they wanted to or not. So I don't think this is a phantom situation as far as that is concerned. And the last bit is simply, I don't think that you put a timetable of 5 weeks on it if you want a guy to go down and get 2 starts or 1 start and re-find his groove. You're not putting a 4 to 5 week timetable on it. So, I think this is a legitimate injury. I mean, honestly, too, people could roll their eyes at this or scoff at this, but I know it was a different GM and whatever, but I also think you're not going to phantom IL people after you're the only organization to ever get a sanction for a phantom IL.
Yeah.
I know that was Billy Epler, not David Stearns, and maybe there was a whistleblower or whatever, but I think that's still a pretty fresh wound as far as the Mets are concerned. So when Tyler McGill has options, I don't think you're running the risk of a phantom IL. This is not a Jose Buto who's out of options, who you may want to do a little roster gymnastics with. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick shout to the 101 that are here. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and also there is a poll going on right now. Make sure you vote on that on the YouTube side. If you are at all worried about the Mets starting rotation at the moment, simple yes or no question. We'll be going over that shortly. But when it comes to McGill, no, I don't think this is phantom. I think this is legit. He's been relatively healthy for the longest time for this team. Nothing too scary when it comes to his arm. So I always feel like all pitchers are just ticking time bombs at this point. So when I hear this, I buy it. I don't think it's something, and to your point, like I don't think that this is something where they're going to mess around with it and phantom someone when he does have options. And, it's very easy to just say that the guy hasn't been performing and we're sending him down to work on some things. I think that this is a legit shutdown. I think that he is hurt. And I feel that it's unfortunate because you don't want to see anybody get hurt. Because like I just said, attacking of the depth of a team is awful and really pushes them even further towards, putting guys in spots, whether they're ready or not, and to see what you have. But in general, at the question at hand, I don't think that this is a lie. I think that this is legit, and I feel for Tyler because we see the the shades of greatness that he has at moments, and then of course it just falls off the map, and then the calendar turns from April to May or May to June, and then it's just back to what we're always accustomed to seeing, which we thought with the lab it would have been different. We thought it might have been potentially figured out, but clearly the lab can't fix everything, and it sucks. You don't like seeing an injury, but I think that this is legit. I do.
Yeah, I agree. Like I already said, Danger Zone checking in saying, LOL, y'all are wild. McLean isn't a name, but McLean has been one forever. Okay, I see what you do in Danger Zone is funny, but also it's spelled McLean. And
It is,
anything,
yeah.
and also, in fairness, anything can be a name, right? Chris Martin and Gwyneth Paltrow's daughter is named Apple. Like, anything can be a name. Anything can be a surname. Anything. All names are made up. And so I know you're just joking around, so I'm not giving you a hard time back, but it's just like, yeah, obviously McLean is much more of a name that I am familiar with and most people, but McLean can be a name. So I don't know,
Yeah, I thought it was.
I'm happy we've been told, otherwise by some other folks. Mr. Nobody saying, Mr. McLean, what? Hebrew Hammer saying, the bloom is unfortunately off the rose when it comes to Griffin Canning. Also, it is a good point. What I will say, though, is one, strap in. There ain't nowhere else to go. Griffin Canning's going to be here. So you got to hope that, not that he's calling for him to be gone. He's just pointing out a fact. But I did not expect Griffin Canning to pitch to an under 3 ERA for the entire season. No. I expected him to be, honestly, like a 4.50 ERA. And for the money that he's making, that's still a positive signing, and he's going to eat a lot of innings, and he's an athletic player. He also, look, those 3 games versus Tampa were ugly. I didn't watch a lot of them because of my schedule. I didn't get a chance to watch any of the games in full. I watched bits and pieces of all of them. He did get a little, noodled to death, in some innings, right? It was the walk, and then it was the misplay, and it was the wild pitch. I know, like, wild pitch is on him, the walk is on him, but, like, you have these situations where, like, 3 runs score, and if a play is made, no runs score. And so, the Mets maybe lose that game anyway, but, his line with 3 runs given up looks a lot better than the 6 runs given up or whatever, So, look, again, he's a guy who's going to give you innings. I didn't think he was going to pitch like an ace all season, and against some good lineups, he's going to be bad. But you know what? He's also been great against some good lineups. So I don't think that that's one that you have to worry about too much as far as Griffin Canning. And again, he ain't going anywhere. Hebrew follows this up by saying Tong has a sub-1 whip and a 1.97 ERA. Said before that Tong is ready. Ibby, I don't want to talk about Griffin Canning. We'll talk about Jonah Tong here for a moment. Jonah Tong's numbers are in AA. So I don't know that you could sit here and definitively say that he's ready. In fact, I think that's going too far. And the other part of it is, I don't think the Mets need to go into AA when they have Nolan McLean in AAA. They have Blade Tidwell in AAA. They have Brandon Sproat in AAA. And they have guys like, Waddell and Hangeman and these guys that they can bounce back and forth. You're not going to reach into AA when you don't have to. And so I don't think we're seeing Jonah Tong at all this season in the major leagues, full stop.
Shout out to, who was it? I think it was Shea during the bold predictions. He was the one that had said that we would see Jonah Tong at some point this season. That was his bold prediction. And look, he's spot on when it comes to what he's been doing to this point, being awesome. But I'm with you. I think that the thing that gets lost on a lot of the Mets fans is sometimes they don't listen to David Stearns when he speaks during these pressers, and he doesn't really lie to you. He tells you how things are going to be, and it's always long. It's always the big picture. It's always long scope. It's never short term. It's never panic moves. It's not something where it's about, we're trying to move tickets or we're trying to do this or try to do that. It's nothing like that. It's all, well thought out, well prepared. So I don't think that they're going to, skip Jonah Tong's progressions from AA to AAA, even though we all know that AA is the show me level and AAA is more the fine tune to make sure that you are set. So I think that eventually you're going to see the likes of Jonah Tong and Jet Williams, because they're both dominating AA. They're going to eventually find their way to Syracuse and get some work done in there before their seasons are up. But I don't think they're going to be up here for the time being. You have other options to go to. So I don't think that Jonah Tong is an option, as much as I love him, as much as I love the numbers and everything that he's been doing to this point. I don't think that is something that is on the docket for this team, at least right now, unless things go completely south and everyone just starts falling by the wayside. That's a different story. But as of right now, I don't think it's an option.
I stand by what I said. I don't think Jonah Tong will sniff the major leagues in 2025. I just don't see it. Odd Villain saying Jonah Tong is definitely ready. for AAA. Part of the reason why I don't think that we will see Tong, shout out to Ryan Finkelstein over on Locked On Mets. He talked a lot over the last week, first in a hypothetical trade situation for Jarren Duran on one of the off days, talking about a Mets trade with the Red Sox and what that would look like. And then, talked about the Red Sox and Giants blockbuster with Rafael Devers and kind of the fallout from that. And in a couple of those instances, he mentioned, Jonah Tong, because he was talking about what it would potentially take to get a guy like Duran, and then, what it wouldn't have taken based on the fact that the Red Sox just wanted to get rid of Devers and get rid of his salary, how it wouldn't take a top flight prospect in order to acquire him. But one of the things that he mentioned, I believe in the Duran conversations was, and I don't know that I agree with this 100%, but I think it's spot on. He said he wouldn't be shocked if he saw Jonah Tong stay in Double-A for the entirety or the bulk of, if not the entirety of the season, so that he can continue to dominate, so that he might be a potential trade chip for the Mets if they were looking to acquire a big time player, whether that's in center field. He was using Duran in that case, somebody with control and a guy who could bat in the top of the lineup and all that stuff, who's an elite center fielder as the example. And his logic was simple. He's like, look, if I'm doing this deal, they're going to want a pitcher with upside. I'm not giving up Nolan McLean, so I'll give up Jonah Tong. I would rather Jonah Tong be the guy who is dominating in Double-A so that his value doesn't take a hit. And again, I'm not saying I agree with all of this 100%, but I think Ryan made a really good point when outlining that. And that's another reason why I don't see Tong factoring into anything near the major leagues. I think the Mets are going to try to protect him, to protect their asset for, their own, for his own growth and his own development, but also because if the Mets are in play to trade anybody, and I'm not in the business of coming up with a hypothetical trade now, this is not even one that I'm endorsing in terms of Duran. I'm just saying at some point, if they are going to make a deal, you're going to have to give up something that you don't really want to give up, because that's how most trades work. And so for that reason, I don't think you're going to see him. I just don't, I don't know if that's something you want to react to, but yeah, go for it.
I'm just curious. Do you remember what, cause I've been thinking about things of that nature, cause I know it's been a topic amongst a lot of our, fellow podcasters in the space and everything on X as well. But what was Finkelstein's hypothetical? It included Tong for Duran. Like, who else did it include?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but I believe it was the headliners of the deal were Tong and Mauricio. And the thought being that Mauricio is cost controlled, super athletic, could play third base right now. Obviously, that would be something that maybe the Red Sox would look into. He could play elsewhere on the middle infield. And then if Bregman were to opt out, Mauricio could go back to third. He could DH for you. It was those two guys and another piece for Duran. And part of his logic again was they've got the center fielder whose name escapes me at the moment, the really great glove center fielder in Boston.
Rafael Senadan, or however you say his name.
He's on they extended him really early, so he's on like a $50 million 8-year deal. And he's a defense first guy. They're probably not going to be able to move him. They want to open up a spot for Roman Anthony, the number one, prospect in all of baseball, to get him regular playing time. And so it just seemed like Duran was going to be the guy with the most value that the Red Sox could use to open up a spot. And, while also getting out from a guy where, they're going to have to pay him down the line. So it did make sense logically. And then to Ryan's credit, he said, look, 2 episodes later, after Devers gets dealt, he said, I think this takes a Duran trade off the table, because the Red Sox now don't need to do it, because they've opened up a roster spot and they've also cleared $250 million of payroll. I know they took about $40 million back in Jordan Hicks or whatever, but essentially they cleared $250 million of that payroll. So now I think Duran is off the table, as he should be. Now, look, again, I don't want to turn this into the Jarren Duran show. Hebrew saying he's Jacoby Ellsbury 2.0. I don't want any part of him. I'd rather take my chance with Jeff or Gilbert first. That's fine. these are just conversations that were had that need to be brought up as we're talking about prospects. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, Ibby. I think Duran is a fine player. I don't think he's a give up everything for him player. And I think right now, I would, just to put this conversation to bed, I would agree with Hebrew in that aspect. Look, I think the Mets can clearly upgrade in center field. I think that that's something maybe they will do, right? But I think before you trade any assets of significance, I would give Gilbert a shot, who's 25, 26 years old at this point. I'd look to Jet Williams. I would just look in-house before I'm dealing anybody. That's my gut too. Not for Duran. Now, if you told me a lesser package could get you a rental of a Cedric Mullins, that I would be interested in. I'm not going off of the name value there of what he did a couple of years ago. I'm just going off of the fact that he's not somebody you're committed to long-term, and he's not somebody you'd have to give up a lot to get. But I don't know. Would you have been interested in a Duran deal, knowing that likely that is off the table? The Red Sox are probably keeping him.
I had said in multiple spaces, whether it was on Twitter or on, I think I said I was talking about an Ant show when they were talking about it this past Sunday. I was mentioning how I think Duran is a fantastic fit for this team, but I don't think it's going to happen because as I listen to Stearns talk and as I see how he's building things, it's about having cost controllable pitching. It's about building from within. It's about, spending your money on hitting and developing your pitching because that's your best route as opposed to dishing out $200+ million for a guy to get hurt. So as much as I like the idea of Duran, as much as I like the idea of Duran being at the top of this lineup and, playing defense in center field and how I think he can integrate with everything and his overall attitude and his hustle. Like, would I love to have that? Of course I would. Do I want to pay the price? I don't want to pay the price. And
not for him. I wouldn't do it.
I don't want to pay the price. And I am too much, on board with everything that has gone on so far with the rise and development of Jonah Tong, with McLean. Obviously I want to see more from Brandon Sproul. I want to see him get, 3-4 starts, put together at AAA and, rediscover himself in terms of getting that prospect shine back on him. But when you have these opportunities to, try to become this sustainable team that you want to become, this is how you do it. And I've been talking about this for the longest time on the show. That's how you go about winning. And I think that that's the route that they're going to continue to go down. They're going to try to get better around the edges. And I know Mets fans want big things. They want grand things. They want this crazy deadline. And I don't think you're going to get it. I think you're going to get a lot of things around the corners, around the edges to help this team get better in terms of depth. I don't think you're going to get that star name. I could be wrong. Things change, as we get closer and closer towards deadline. But I think that that's the way it's going to go. So I'm more in line with making sure I do everything I can to hold on to those pitchers and to the point of Hebrew as well. And I agree with it, as I've been saying on the show as well. Stay with what you have in-house. See what it can do. Then you can assess, do I have to go out and find something? And if I have to, then yes, you can look at the types of like Cedric Mullins and players of that ilk.
Yeah, a couple things. Armand saying, A-bomb per Mike Puma, storm clouds above Truist Park, and here comes the tarp. That's pretty typical this time of year in Atlanta. I'm sure the Mets and Braves will get this game in, but it looks like it will not start on time, at least now. Ibby, that may give us a couple more minutes of the podcast to play with. So thank you to Armand for that. Obviously, when we're on the day of the game, and we're not going to go past the Mets game. We're not going to go into when the Mets are on because you guys want to watch it. We want to watch it too. So Armand, thanks for that, and keep us abreast as to what's going on. If it looks like it's going to get delayed and we got a lot of questions coming in and comments and stuff, maybe Ibby and I will hang out for a couple minutes longer. Try to get to a bit more of those along the way. Stevie Mac with a tongue-in-cheek comment here. Sorry, it covers up your face, Ibby. We have to start changing this. Saying, oh my God, why didn't we give up the entire farm for Devers? Stearns needs to go. How dare he give the 40 infielder youngins we have a chance? Let Donovan Mitchell run the team already! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Of course, said very tongue-in-cheek. That is a very funny comment from Stevie Mac. I think made funnier.
Love you, Stevie.
I think it's made funnier in rant form as he has Animal as the background, as his avatar on Animal from the Muppets, because I could just kind of hear it, in Animal's crazy fucking caveman voice or whatever. Ibby, I will say this, just because we're on the topic. It's a funny comment, but there is one thing of note. I think as we're talking about this, trade packages hypothetical thing, if I'm the Mets and I'm Steve Cohen, and again, I know that no money is truly unlimited, but I think I would be more inclined to simply take on money, maybe not as much money as Devers is owed for the length of that contract, right? He's like a year into like an 8-year extension. But my point is, if I'm the Mets, I would rather trade nothing, quote unquote, nothing, to get Devers than I would trade anything of significance for a guy like Durant. You know what I mean? Like, I know you got to pay him a lot. I know he makes like $34 million a year on that deal and everything, but that's what the Yankees did in their heyday, right? They would just be like, oh, you can't afford that player anymore, or that player's a malcontent. We don't care. Our culture's good. We'll trade you a bucket of nothing and give us this guy and we'll pay all the money. You know, and credit to San Francisco, because they've been trying to give out their money and they missed on a couple of really big players, most notably the superstar known as Arson Judge. But they have gotten a couple of other guys with what they've done with Matt Chapman and Willie Adames. And now you add Devers into the mix. They're only a couple games behind the Dodgers for that division. They're a sneaky team. They can be a scary team. I think it's a great deal for them. But if I'm looking at this from a Mets perspective, maybe I even tweeted it, I think 2 months ago, a month ago, whatever. I was like, it was an off day. And I said, off day thought the Mets should trade for Rafael Devers. And this was after he said he wasn't going to play first base. And people jumped down my throat. You know, Keith, Shea and Son, shout out to him. I was Edge, I think. A lot of people disagreed because they're like, you know, we don't want this kind of guy who doesn't play ball or whatever. But I think it's different when you have a guy who you promise is a cornerstone of your franchise, and then you displace him for a guy who you just signed, whether that is justified or not, whether that player is a better defensive player or not. Like, I understand why Devers is hurt and, you know, hurt feelings by this. And I look at it from a San Francisco Giants perspective. Devers has already said, I'll play any position that the Giants want me to, as long as the team, as long as it helps the team. And it's amazing how that shifts when you didn't have a GM and an organization dump a bunch of money in your lap and say, you're our star, you're our third baseman, you're not going anywhere. You know, again, people could argue with the merit of whether or not he handled it the right way. And I definitely don't think he did, but I think you could see him just being a perfect citizen in San Francisco, because the situation is different. If a team promises you stuff and then they don't deliver on it, I'm not saying you act like
you feel betrayed.
Did, but you do feel betrayed.
You do.
And I don't necessarily blame him. Again, I don't think he did the right thing, but I don't really blame him either. I don't. And, you know, that was a trade that I would rather the Mets make than going out and trading the farm for Jarren Duran. That's just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I think that, you know, a lot of Mets fans obviously ran with that when this whole thing happened, saying, where was Stearns and this and that? Like, why can't we, like, we need production, this and that, forget these kids. I know Truman Quinn's been dropping that line in a bunch of chats this week where he's saying we have to give up the baby Mets for adoption at this point. But, you know, David Stearns has said
that's a good line. I like that.
David Stearns has said before that he wants to give these guys some run to see what he has, and it's the right thing to do. And I understand that Devers is a superstar, and I have a lot of feelings on that deal. It's very Wilpon-esque. It's very throw the player under the bus and, you know, paint them as this awful citizen and have the media run with it and tell your side of the story. And there's just a lot of it that I don't like and I don't agree with. And, you know, it doesn't shock me that he has this change of heart the second he goes to San Francisco and says, I'll do whatever it takes to win. I'll do whatever you guys want me to do. It's a new situation. It's not like, to your point, he wasn't told that you're our third baseman. He wasn't told, you know, here's all this money. You're our star. You're our franchise. You're this, you're that. To have it all taken away from him and saying, well, you know, you're kind of out of shape. You're lazy. You're this, you're that. You're not that good at third. We're going to sign this guy instead. He's a leader. He's a champion. We have these young kids too. They're, you know, they have more shine than you do. So it's kind of not your show anymore. So like, we don't need you. And then just taking that as an opportunity to really just dump money because you have an owner that probably has buyer's remorse because he didn't want to spend it in the first place. And then you bring in a new GM who basically says, it's not my money. It wasn't my contract. what can I do to, run with this and get him out of here? And then they took that, they ran with it, and that's where it continues to go. So I don't agree with the whole thing. I think it's pretty shitty on Boston's end. I think that they've been pretty pathetic the last handful of years when it comes to handling superstars. And, I think that a lot of Boston fans would agree with everything I'm saying to this point. And it sucks because a franchise like Boston should not be acting like Miami. But
no,
either here nor there. Would have loved to have him as a player here, would have been great, but I understand why the Mets weren't anywhere involved, and I understand why the Giants did it, because they couldn't convince anybody to take their money, so they said, we'll take on all that money, because in essence, it's the cheapest deal for a superstar that you're going to get in today's market.
Absolutely. And shout out Armand saying Devers is 2 years in to a 10-year, $313 million extension. He has 8 years, $254 million left. Thank you for clearing that up. I know I sort of misspoke. I said he had $250 million left, but he was in year one of an 8-year extension. So I got the years a bit wrong, maybe. So 8 years, $254 million left. I mean, honestly, if I'm the Mets, I would have gotten involved in that. There is reports, which you would tend to believe in this instance, that Devers wasn't necessarily being shopped. Now, I think to your point, I think the GM was like, well, I didn't do this. I can get out of this. We can clear this up. We can get rid of this malcontent. We can start anew, and we can free up money. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he was being shopped around the league. That could also be a little bit of GM speak. Also, the Mets have a massive payroll. The Mets have
110% tax.
Yeah, the Mets have 3 legitimate stars in the lineup in Lindor, Soto, and Alonso. I think Nimmo is a tick beneath that. And then you look, obviously, if you want to call Senga a star, I think it's a little difficult just because he hasn't pitched that much. Edwin Diaz is certainly a star. The Mets have a lot more star players than most teams do. And not that matters or anything, but like they're all getting paid like star players. Edwin Diaz is paid the highest money in the league for a closer. He's paid like the best closer in baseball. Lindor is the highest paid shortstop in baseball, and Soto's the highest paid player in baseball. And Alonso got paid on a short-term deal, but over market value technically. So there's a lot there where you're like, look, would it be great to have Devers? Sure. Could we take on his money? Probably. Do we want to? Not necessarily. So it wasn't going to happen. I'm just saying it is the type of deal that I would be more interested in doing if I'm the Mets than going and giving up a bunch of prospects for a guy who's, look, I think Duran is good. I don't think he's great. I think on a really good team, he could be a great asset. Would I love to have a guy like him on the Mets? Yeah, but it'd be, I don't know, maybe in a couple of years, that guy is Jet Williams. Maybe in a couple of years, that guy is Carson Benj, and you don't have to give up anything to go out and acquire that person. We do have a super chat that I missed. Apologies, from Danger Zone. Danger, we'll get to this in one moment. I just want to wrap up this conversation because it changes gears completely to pull up the super chat. So Armand says, update from Puma, it's now pouring in Atlanta. So maybe we might have a little bit of time here. Ricardo saying, if not Duran, maybe Randy or Rosarena in Seattle. They're always looking to unload money. I think that is a more likely scenario. The only problem is Randy,
which is sad. They should be adding offense, not taking away. They
Absolutely.
should be adding offense.
I just don't know that Randy Rosarena is a center fielder. I know he's very athletic, but no. I don't think he is. That's a little bit of square peg, round hole. That's very like we went out and got Cespedes and made him play center field kind of thing. Hey, that team made it to the World Series, but that team was also exposed immediately in the World Series along with Cespedes' defense in center field. Ibby, let's jump into this super chat. 199 on the super chat from Danger Zone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Danger.
Saying, give me a 3 to 4 leg parlay for our game tonight. Ibby, this is not something that we normally do. I'll admit this, I am not much of a gambler. Right. I am the kind of person that, if I'm in Vegas, I might play for an hour. I might take out a small amount of money and play because I went in Rome sort of thing. Right. I've done, before there was harder restrictions on it and I still lived in New York, I did a couple of those daily fantasy things. Mm-hmm. I did not love it. I was okay at it. I won a couple bucks. I think I probably made, I probably put $200 in and made like my money back basically. Right. And then I was like, this is weird and I don't like it. And it's too many people at the time. There were no regulations. People were putting in like basically betting against themselves and they were winning, because they could put in like, a fucking $10,000 every day and just reap the benefits by flooding the market. And if I'm in Saratoga, or if I'm at the I've never been to any of the big like the
Hanging out
Derby or anything
Francesa?
like that. Yeah, okay. Saratoga, okay,
At
it's beautiful.
Saratoga.
All right, okay. You gotta go to Saratoga, okay. I use the Blade app, okay, and it picks me up, okay, a helicopter, okay, and it takes me up there to Saratoga. All right, we land in a field, okay, that's pretty good. All right, okay. No, I mean, listen, I used to go up to Saratoga a lot. My ex-girlfriend that woman I dated for a very long time was from Saratoga, long before we started doing this show, long before you and I met. But so I used to go to Saratoga like once a month. But anyway, I digress. We don't normally do this. When I had the Jets show, when we did the goddamn Jets, we would do the over-under, okay?
Okay.
And we would bet, we would pick against the spread, okay? Because that's what you have to do when you have a football show. Yeah. We have never done anything that touches this on a baseball show. I know I'm putting you on the spot. I will also give some things, but is this something we can do right now, or is this something we should do out of the break and like actually come up with something? I'm going to leave it up to you. We have to address it in some way because it is a super chat.
I mean, if you want a higher end type of parlay, I can give you a 3-leg one right now. I could. I got one off the top of my head.
Okay. You know what? I mean, thank you for that. Okay. Go ahead. Hit us with it.
I got one. Obviously, I don't even have the numbers in front of me. So if Danger, you could let me know what these are after I say it. I would take the over. Take the over on Peterson's strikeouts. I would take
hang on 1 second. Over under 4.5 Ks is an option.
So I would take over on the Ks. I would take over on Juan Soto's total bases. And I would take, if this is making an even riskier parlay, but again, no risk it, no biscuit. A home run by Brandon Nimmo.
Okay.
That would be mine.
I'm so bad at this.
Again, this is not betting advice. This is just us talking.
No,
again,
this is just us.
We want to put that out there.
This is not advice. Never.
This is not advice.
This is not. I think legally we have to say this is not advice.
This is not advice.
Yes. This is. Never bet what you can't afford to lose. All that stuff. This is just for fun. Right. Legally, this is not advice.
Not advice.
We're just having fun. I would say I would be inclined to maybe couple. I think you're spot on with the Peterson over under strikeouts. I think he'll go over 4.5. Mm-hmm. And I would couple that with Spencer Schwellenbach's over under, which is over
that's a good
under 5.5 strikeouts. I think both pitchers will go over. I know that's only 2, but I think that's something that I would look at. Clink saying, John, now that you're back, we need a Francesa impression every week because it kills every time. Thank you. Stevie Mac. This is all hypotheticals. I were
yours.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, Odd's put up his mortgage over here. Take it easy, Odd. Take it easy.
Slow the fuck down, man. Slow down, homie. And then shout out to Hebrew Hammer also saying that's a great Francesa, John. Thank you. You can tell that I listen to Francesa a lot in my life. Because that's just how it goes. Yes, this podcast isn't even happening right now. Nope. This is all a dream.
Fiction.
Ooh, it's all fiction. This is all for fun. That's why we do that's why we do impressions of celebrities like Mike Francesa. It's all made up. It's all for fun. It's all parody. I'm not even going to say this out loud just so that people know it's all parody, but no, sorry. Danger Zone just says that could be spicy. So
could be.
No, I do like that, Ibby. It's funny because in the football show that I used to do, it was just kind of baked in. You're not doing it for betting purposes. You're just picking the game, right? You're just like, oh, this is the point spread. And this is, do we think this team's going to win and whatever. It's just like, it's such an integral part of previewing a football matchup that is different from doing a once a week baseball show. So,
right.
Jump back into the comments here. A couple of really good ones. Armand saying Brooks Raley tonight in his first rehab appearance for the St. Lucie Mets. 1 inning pitch, 1 hit, no runs, no walks, 2 Ks, 12 pitches, 10 strikes out of those 12 pitches. Fastball was up to 92. He averaged 88.9 miles per hour on the pitch last season. So I think that's Brooks Raley kind of right about where he needs to be. I think you could have him, Ibby, back here sooner rather than later because unlike starting pitchers, relief pitchers really just need to show they're healthy. We saw that sort of with Dediel Nunez. I know he's, kind of not been effective and he went back down, but you just see it with these guys. If you're healthy and you are contributing it during rehab, when your rehab's up, you come right up and be a part of this bullpen. And while the guy that they got from Arizona has been very good for them with Castillo, right?
Castillo, yeah.
Jose Castillo?
Yeah, I think it's Jose.
Yeah,
Castillo,
his name escaped me for a second. Jose Castillo has been very good. I think the Mets would like another legitimate lefty in the bullpen. I think Brooks Raley will give them that. And I would say probably in about maybe less than a month. Would you say that maybe we'll see Brooks Raley back around July 1st?
I think that's fair. I think it is. I think that obviously they're going to be careful and make sure everything is proper, but I could see, that first week of July, maybe second week of July, I could definitely see him back.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Maybe not. Maybe the slightly after the All-Star break, maybe they go that route, whatever it is. Ricardo saying Nunez needs to stay away from the buffet table. Damn. Oh my God, Ricardo.
I'm laughing at Dangerous too. Thanks, fellas. Just catching up. I put my firstborn, but little do they know it's already promised to the Jets Super Bowl.
Yeah,
oh my God. God bless you, Danger. Seriously.
The Jets, look, I know this is not the point of this show. I just want to say this so everybody knows, because we did have some overlap. Armand was on the Jets show a lot that we stopped doing. And the reason why we stopped doing it is a couple different reasons. My schedule just was very hectic. It was the 3-host show as myself, Kimberly Cantoni, Tom O'Boyle. Tom's wife Olivia was pregnant and has since had a baby, obviously, because that's how time works. And so she was very pregnant. His time was getting very small in terms of having a newborn at home. Kimberly Cantoni had a toddler at home and is now pregnant again. And so she was very unable to do it. And then it just came down to, can I do it by myself? And the Jets kind of broke me. And I really didn't want to do it by myself because I've been a Jets fan for a really long time. And I at this point, I think I'm just a casual Jets fan. I was a diehard fan for a long time. And I think after 15 years of being among the worst football I have ever watched or anyone has ever watched, I just think at some point there needs to be a return on your investment in fandom, Ibby. I think the Jets are in a position to take this back into the Mets. The Jets are in a position that maybe us as Mets fans would be sitting in if Steve Cohen never bought the team. And even then, the Wilpons had more success, albeit by accident, than Woody Johnson has really had. And, the ownership really matters, man. And again, there has to be some kind of return on investment for your fandom. If you're a Mets fan and a Jets fan, you're not a fair weather person, but at some point, Ibby, there's a line. There's a line of like, I could do anything else on Sunday, especially being a guy who lives out of town, who had to pay $450 for Sunday ticket and not use it for half the season because the season went up in smoke. So just, it's just one of those things, man. Eventually you do have to get something for your investment as a fandom.
Absolutely. And I feel very thankful that I'm not a Jets fan. Those that have been with us for a while know that I'm a Falcons fan. So I've had my fair share of...
happen to you? Like, didn't you take a step back after, and I'm not poking fun. Didn't you take a step back after they blew the Super Bowl to the Pats?
I as a fan, I still believe I really haven't truly recovered from that. I really felt like my fandom died that night, but it also died because of, if you don't have a quarterback, it's very hard to watch the game. And I was very fortunate as to your point of, having things and giving, give back to you as a fan. I would say that, I enjoyed my Mets my entire life, but I would be lying if I said it wasn't very nice to have, while the Mets were struggling between the years of 2008 to 2015, I had the birth of Matt Ryan on the Falcons, and I got to watch good football, and I got to watch my team get to a Super Bowl, albeit it ends the way that it did, but I got to see those things, and it was fantastic. And now, the Falcons have been irrelevant now for almost a decade at this point, and I'm lucky enough that the Mets were bought by Steve Cohen, and now I get to get back to having something that allows me to have fun as a fan. Otherwise it's just miserable. So God bless everyone that is a Mets and Jets fan.
We'll stop talking about football here, but just wanted to let you know, Ibby, odd villain I'm a New Orleans Saints fan.
Oh no.
Oh, hell not.
Oh
Ibby.
no. Odd.
Falcons,
Odd.
my ops. So you can put
Odd.
on you. That's it, man. You and
We
I
were friends. Now I gotta hate you. I'm sorry. Of all, you had to be an Aints fan. You had to be. We'll talk about this in DMs later. We'll talk about it later.
Let's get back to the Mets conversation, of course. Although it's nice to have a fun digression there. Armand asking, John, will you be at the game next Monday? I know I kind of talked about this last week. I can confirm that I will be at the game next Monday. Mets, Braves, doing a repeat of the series that we're in right now, only at Citi Field. First time in about a year and a half that I've seen the Mets at Citi Field, just with my schedule. So I'm flying to New York tomorrow. I am working Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday on a project, and myself and another individual who you guys know. Actually, I probably could say it. Joe Prano, who's been a guest on the show, wonderful comic. Three-time guest on the show. Wonderful comic.
Soon to be four. Yeah.
Host of the Dirty Sports podcast. Him and I for sure are going to the game. Ibby might be there. We'll see. And some other folks might be there too. We might be doing something. So I'm definitely going to be at the game. So yeah, Odd Villain saying, oh, John, we out. Yeah. So hit me up on Twitter. Or just like, let me know if you guys are going to be there at the game. I would love to, meet and hang and, whatever, get a beer, get a sausage and pepper sandwich with,
and clearly if I show up, I'm fighting Odd, clearly based off what we just found out. If I show up, I got to fight Odd now.
Yeah. Right. I think like Odd Villain with me wants to link up. I think with, if I could use another,
he wants to square up.
Yeah. I was going to say square up or on site for you, Ibby. Carson saying 200 of these fucking things. Congrats, boys. Thank you very much, Carson.
Thank you, Carson.
Oh yeah, Ibby, it's on site for you and Odd Villain. No, for real. Armand's saying he's going to DM me. Other folks DM me as well. We'll figure out what's really good. Here's the thing, Ibby. Armand and Danger Zone sort of bring this up together. Danger Zone saying first, what's the odds of Peterson going 9 again? 2%. I would say, in light of recent news and just how Major League Baseball works, and God, everything that I would say that while 2% is remarkably low, I would put the odds of Peterson going 9 again at less than 0, if that's possible. I would say, considering he went 9, how often pitchers do that back-to-back nowadays, how often they're allowed to do that back-to-back nowadays, how often they're effective after going 9 the following start after that. The injury to Senga and the injury to Tyler McGill, I would say it's almost it's 100% certainty that David Peterson does not go 9 innings. Less than 2%. Your thoughts?
I would agree with that. I think they can be very safe in taking care of him. But I also think that from the stuff that we've heard to this point, I think that he's very much an old school type of guy, and he would love to go out there and do what he can. I think I'm very excited about this matchup, mainly because I know that because of what happened this past weekend, which we want to forget about because it was ugly against the Rays and all that's gone on with the pitching, I think David Peterson's going to put that on his shoulders tonight and say, I can be the guy. I can be a bulldog. I can go out there and I can give you 6 strong innings of good baseball, hand it over to the pen. Hopefully the guys can do their job and get some runs, even though, look, Spencer Schwellenbach is no slouch. He was a dark horse for me for a Cy Young at the beginning of the season, and I respect him very much. He's a great pitcher, and it's not going to be easy. Okay, this team has some tough matchups, and we can talk about the Brave series, out of the break coming up right now. But it's going to be tough. But I'm very happy that we get to kickstart this series with David Peterson on the mound, and even though he's not going to go 9, I think you can get a very, very, very strong 6 out of him.
I tend to agree. I think 6 or 7 innings. Danger saying you're scaring me on the over the strikeouts now, though. Thanks a lot. I was actually going to say, Ibby, just going back to that conversation, maybe over on strikeouts for Peterson, 4.5, over on strikeouts for Schwellenbach, 5.5. Depending on what the innings is for Peterson, I would be inclined to take the over or the under there, and then maybe that gets you to your 3. That's where I would go. I would do it all pitching, just because I don't know. I'm simple like that. Armand saying weather update: Mets and Braves will start in a delay, so you'll probably get a little bit more show out of that because Ibby and I like to talk. Armand also saying question. This was from before. Should the Mets push back Peterson till tomorrow since the game will most likely be delayed, and now confirming that it is delayed, Ibby? So putting this question in the context of real time, I would say no, as long as once the game starts, you don't foresee having another delay. I think with all of the craziness of the Mets pitching, you don't like to really spring this on guys because baseball players and starting pitchers and just pitchers in general, routine, creatures of habit, all the cliches. But I think if there's a chance this game gets delayed again, once they start, with the shape of the Mets rotation, I would not want to lose Peterson. So I think that's the variable that you're looking at here. I don't care if the game starts at 10 p.m. Eastern time. If you can play the whole game, Peterson can start. If there's going to be another delay, that's when I'd pull off Peterson. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And obviously, I think they'll have the weather, as up to date as they could possibly get, and they'll read off of that. I don't think you can move guys this late because of said routines. You have it set already. You got Peterson today. You got Blackburn tomorrow, and then you have who's going on Thursday? I'm blanking
Clay
right
Holmes.
now. Clay Holmes. Okay, so hey, look, they're not going to be easy matchups. I think a lot of people are already reserved to the fact that we might be losing tomorrow with Sale versus Blackburn, but you never know. Crazier things have happened. But no, I don't think you can move off of things, allow them to play out. But if the weather dictates that you're going to have, an up and down type of situation, then maybe, just maybe, you can switch it up a little bit. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to stay as is.
Yeah, Ibby, let me throw a hypothetical at you because I don't know how often this happens, again, because starting pitchers are creatures of habit. Pitchers in general, again, like to be in their routine, just to echo those two cliches. Because I think they're cliches, but I also think they're true. And I think that has, if nothing else, a psychological effect on performance, if not a tangible effect on performance. I don't think any team really goes about this. I can't think of a situation. Maybe you can. Maybe somebody else might be able to fact check me on this. Has there been a situation where this late before a start, where knowing rain might start again, you might not push the starter back a day, but maybe opt to use an opener? In other words, we might lose a person who's going to start and pitch an inning or two. So let's go Huáscar Brazoban because he's only going to give us 2 innings anyway, and then go to David Peterson. I can't remember, not just the Mets, I can't really think of a situation in baseball famously where that's done for the sake of a rain delay.
I can't think of one either.
Right?
I can't think. No, I can only think of situations where an opener is used in the sense of what it is. Like, we're going to have this guy go an inning or two because, X guy isn't that great in the first inning. So we're going to get him going in the third or the fourth inning instead, but never so much from a strategical standpoint of, rains here. We want to save this guy. We want to make sure we still get this guy for the bulk of the game. Like, I don't think I can think of one off the top of my head.
Yeah, me neither. And again, it's just food for thought more than anything else. Not really, necessarily anything that anybody needs to spend any time on thinking about. Edward Wall saying joined late, didn't get the notification, but happy 200 LFGM. Yes, sorry about that, guys. We're going live a day early today because of the news, but mostly because I will be traveling to New York tomorrow all day, and we wanted to celebrate 200 together with all of you, even if that meant a day early. Aunt Rivera, Subway to Shay, our boy, saying, I'm late to the party, but congrats on episode 200. Welcome to the club. Don't forget to tell everyone your favorite episode was with me talking about the Mets bullpen coach for an hour. I think you already did. I think we've gotten that sorted. It's top two. It's top two. That one, and when we talk Glenn Sherlock too. Glenn Sherlock. Anytime we can talk about bullpen coaches, third base coaches, or bench coaches, whatever it is. Aunt Rivera, whenever he joins the show, it's always at the worst time of the offseason. Like, Mets will sign Juan Soto the day after Aunt Rivera has been on this show, where we're sitting there talking about, like, yeah, man, wow, it's really great. Mets have a new assistant pitching coach, right? Yeah. For 45 minutes. Listen, this is funny. Carson saying Braves doing the weather machine bullshit again, back to the basics. But Odd Villain somehow taking it one step further. and saying Robert E. Lee's ghost manipulating the weather again. Redneck weather. That is so fucking funny. I am so sorry. That is hilarious. That is terrific. Ibby, we're going to go into the break here in a second. The one thing I want to get out of the way, really quick thoughts. We keep glossing over it for good reason, but just your thoughts on the 3-game sweep that the Mets suffered at the hands of the Rays before we move into previewing this series with the Braves. I'll just say this. This is my thoughts completely in a nutshell. It sucks to lose games. It sucks to lose series. It sucks to be swept. It sucks to have those things happen at home. It sucks, especially when you see the Phillies doing what they did, which was sweeping the Blue Jays. That allows them to gain some ground on you, whatever. But Ibby, the way I look at it is, it's a bummer, but the Mets have played such great baseball for a stretch. The Mets have played terrific baseball all season long at home. I don't think this not getting swept at home thing was going to continue for the entire season. So it sucks, but it happens. First sweep of the season. I'm not losing sleep over it. It sucks a little bit the way it happened with the pitching sort of crumbling. And then the injuries to add insult or injury to actual insult. But I don't know. It's annoying, but it doesn't really move the needle for me. I think it's just a 3-game series you can flush. That's my thoughts.
It's a forgetful weekend. It's one that, it happens every season. It sucked to watch, as I alluded to earlier in the show. Nobody liked it. The pitching wasn't there. The offense continued to be lost when it came to runners in scoring position. So many opportunities missed throughout the weekend, as it continues to be a huge bugaboo for this team throughout the season. I know Carson's keeping track of it. We're well over 500 plus players left on base to this point in their continued failure with runners on. And look, I'm going to flush it. I don't want to think about it. It's done and finished with. You wanted to get out of there on that Sunday with the win going into a Braves series down in Atlanta, but it is what it is. Let it go. It's done. Pick up and you start anew. All good teams, have these rough stretches, and they're able to flush it and reestablish and refocus themselves on what's in front of them. And what's in front of this team is what we're going to talk about in the second half here, which is 10 games against the NL East. Big games coming up with the Braves and Phils. We'll get into it coming up after this 30-second spot. But yeah, I'm not too worried about what happened in terms of the overall series. It just sucked. So I'm just going to forget about it and move forward, because that's all we can do.
Yeah. Well said. I think you and I have said all that we can about that 3-game set. And like you alluded to, what's right in front of us is the 30-second break that we use to reset the conversation and for some ads on the audio version of the show. So don't go anywhere. Just a 30-second break here on the live stream. John Saponaro, Matt Ibanez, all of you in the comments. Til Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter. We'll be right back. Yo, just like that, we are back with Til Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, like we are each and every single week. Of course, here this week, coming to you a day early, normally Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time is where you can find this show. That's why, Ibby, we tell people every week, the best way to stay up to date is to subscribe to the channel and turn the notifications on so that you get an alert when we are going live. That is, if things have to change for our schedules, if things have to change because something crazy happens in Mets land, if we're adding an episode, which we've done before, when something crazy happens, a massive trade, a free agent signing, whatever along the way. So also, when you subscribe to the channel, that opens up everything that this channel has to offer, not just the super chats, but the ability to chat. You can't be in the live chat unless you are subscribed. And of course, once we're two away
from 1,300. Come on, guys. Two
away from 1,300. Once we get to 1,300, we are going to get into our next giveaway, which Ibby has been sitting on for a long time. I think a lot of people are going to want it. It is an awesome one. I know what it is. Obviously, Ibby knows what it is because it is in his possession, but we're not telling anybody until we get to 1,300, and then we can talk about how we're doing the giveaway and whatever is going to happen. So all that said, if you missed any of the show, you can go back and you can watch it on replay once we're done with the live recording. Probably get out of here about 7:10 or so here tonight because the Mets game's getting pushed back a little bit. So we'll push maybe another 5 minutes or so longer than we were going to go to hang out with you guys for just a bit longer. But I've got a flight to catch in the morning, and Ibby's got a lot of stuff going on because he's a dad and he's got a million things going on being a dad. So we can't stay too late, but we'll make sure to give you guys a little bit of extra time. That said, if you came late or you have to leave early, you can watch the entire show on replay once we are done. And if you can't do any of that, this will drop later on tonight as an audio podcast on Apple, Amazon Music, Spotify, all of those places and more. Ibby, before we get back to the conversation, let's hit him with a quick word from our friends over at Independent Safes.
Absolutely, John. IndependentSafes.com. Independent Safes are protecting homes and businesses with secure residential and commercial safes. Fireproof peace of mind in every corner. Visit IndependentSafes.com today for security that stands strong. And look, I usually do my segment here when it comes to the dope of the day. And I don't know if I have anyone in particular when it comes to our Mets that I want to put in off the top of my head. Look, I could talk about the Red Sox all I want and John Henry and Craig Breslow and all that stuff. But this is a Met show, so I don't think I have anything in that sense. So again, shout out to the people over at Independent Safes, $99, free shipping. Make sure you head on over there. Tell them that Til Mets sent you. They'll take care of you. And yeah, all good things. Til Mets, yeah. Whatever.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, go ahead.
You and I have talked off air about the dope of the day segment.
Yes.
That you brought in a couple weeks ago, right before I came back, basically.
Yeah.
It's something that we want to, I love it. The first time I saw it, I thought it was hilarious. You kind of gave me a precursor of it when I wasn't on the show. You kind of sent it to me. I think it's great. I think it's hilarious. I do think it's something we should try to do every week, even if it's tangential to the Mets. And you and I have been talking off air about how we can do that, make that happen, fine tune it. I know I'm putting you on the spot again, but I think maybe we should open this up to the chat.
Okay.
One, if it's something that they want to see every week, in coordination with Independent Safes.
Okay.
And two, because there's a lot of creative folks that watch our show and listen to our show.
Absolutely.
If they want to come up with, they want to give us suggestions for a name for the segment that has more to do with, I love dope of the day, but if we're going to tie it into Independent Safes, I would kind of like if it has to do with safes in some way. And so maybe we'll just throw it out to the chat right now. They obviously don't have to decide right now, but if they have ideas, start throwing them our way, start sending it to us on Twitter, start sending us to us on Instagram. You can comment after the fact if you watch it later.
I do have one.
Okay.
I do have an idea. I do have one that I can throw out there. It's about people that are clearly crazy, people that are off base, in the things that they say.
I like it.
So safes are about what? Locking things up.
Okay.
So something along the lines of like locking up or locked up lunacy. It's an idea. I mean, that's one that I just thought off the top of my head. But again, workshop, and if anyone's got ideas, please toss them into the comments. We're open for anything, and I'll gladly make any type of graphic that you want.
You know what, Ibby? Since you put yourself out there and you threw one out, we try to get this conversation going in the chat, not just now, but going forward till we kind of settle on something. I also had a thought.
Okay.
You kind of mirrored what I was going to say.
Okay.
And the thing that I was thinking on is throw away the key.
Okay.
Lock them up.
And the balloons go. The balloons show up.
I don't know what I still don't know how I do that. I feel when that happens and I don't know how I did it, I feel like I am an 80-year-old idiot. Because that's like some shit your fucking dad does on a family Zoom call, and he's like, "How does this work?" And he's like touching the camera. I just feel like I'm so out of touch. Like I'm not old enough to be that out of touch. Anyway, throw away the key was my suggestion. I'm not married to any of these things. But yeah, Armand kind of saying, how about lunatic lockup? I don't hate that. Yeah. So, listen, Until we settle on a name, there is nothing is off base. Carlos Ramos saying John sticking his hand up like that looks like he's sharing the screen with Slimer from Ghostbusters, which is actually a very good astute observation. It does kind of look like Slimer at times. It'd be one more show with the cast.
One more show. Okay.
Wednesday, I will be doing the show with the cast, and then that Friday, the cast is coming off. So it'll be off. It'll be off soon. I can't wait till it's off. I hate it. It's so annoying. Odd Villain saying Happy Father's Day to the Rays because they sunned us.
That is true. They did. They scored 24 runs in 3 games. We got our asses kicked. Plain and simple.
We did. We really did. It was God. It's just gross. So, Ibby, let's talk about this Atlanta Braves series. We don't usually set up the show to be like a preview, but so we don't have to dive into each matchup. Other shows do that. They do it really well. Ours is just kind of formatted a bit different. But here's the long view. The Mets have 10 games in a row against Atlanta, Philadelphia, and Atlanta. First 7 are on the road. Last 3 of those are at home. This is a very important stretch. We already talked right before we went into the break about the Phillies gaining some ground, which I'm not obsessed with this time of year.
No,
June 17th is too early. Listen, when the Mets, quote unquote, lost first place to the Phillies, a month ago, everybody thought like the sky was falling. Meanwhile, the Phillies were just like, beating up on teams they should beat and whatever. So I don't care about the 5.5 game lead going down to 2.5 games. It is what it is. That stuff is going to fluctuate. The Phillies are not a bad team. They're going to be in the conversation. The Braves obviously have started off down pretty bad, and they have a lot of ground to make up. I'm not going to put anything against them. There's still plenty of season where they can make up ground, especially with a lot of games directly against the Mets. So I'm not going to take them lightly. Their pitching was legit. Even though some guys have been having down years, they've got a lot of talent on that team in the lineup. And when the Mets go down to Atlanta, no matter what the stadium is called, no matter where the stadium is built, I don't care if it's in fucking Buckhead or wherever the hell this one is now, it's a house of horrors for the Mets. They exercised those demons a little bit last year in, getting into the playoffs and all of that. But these are 10 very significant games. If the Mets lose more than they win, I'm not going to say the sky is falling next week, but I'd like the Mets to win more than they lose. I think that that's pretty fair. I think people want to see that. If you told me the Mets get through this 10-game stretch 6-4, I'd be ecstatic. So, especially with the condition of the pitching. Can the Mets do more than that and surprise us? I think they can. Can the Mets do worse than that and disappoint us? I think they can. So, all that I could say is no matter what happens at the end of this 10-game stretch, the Mets are not going to likely the Mets won't bury anybody. I mean, if they sweep the Braves, they could bury the Braves maybe. They're not going to bury Philly. And if the Mets lose the bulk of these games, they're not going to be buried. But they will have, these 10 games do certainly have 162 game season long implications. And that can't be understated. You don't want to overstate it, but you can't understate it either because there is a lot of import in these 10 games.
Like I said before, the fact that you get that Peterson rollout against Schwellenbach to start the series with the Braves is big, and the worry is game 2 with Sale against Blackburn, and then game 3 it's Holmes versus against Strider, and I think Strider's coming off of I think his last start he had 13 strikeouts. So we might be catching Spencer Strider at a time where he's starting to finally start to get a little bit more back under him, coming off of the injury and stuff like that. So I never put anything past the Braves. I never like to, bury them like others do. Even with the rough start, I know that they've had a tough schedule. Things are going to lighten up for them, especially in the second half. If they start rounding into form, there's no reason why the Braves can't make a run because they still have a bunch of talent. So it's definitely a situation where you want to win more than you lose. Obviously, we always want that in a 10-game stretch like this against the Braves and the Phils, who are directly in competition with you for this division. So it's definitely important. And these next 10 games, to me at least, are going to tell the story about what this pitching might look like moving forward after these 10 games. So depending on what the showing is from both the starting rotation and the bullpen about how this team might go about attacking said depth, whether it's a starter or multiple relievers to try and get some help near the deadline, I do think that finding the identity of legitimate, like, I mean, everything's been legitimate to this point, but this is a point to your, like what you were saying. This in the scale of 162 matters because it's 10 games in a row against your division. This is what's going to dictate space. I always talk about creating space. This is the ultimate opportunity to create space because the next 10 games are directly focused on your division. You handle business here, you alleviate some of that pressure. This is a spot. This is 1000% a spot where this offense needs to carry the load. In my opinion, offense needs to carry here because of the shortcomings that the pitching has had to this point. Maybe they're a little bit tired and winded because they've been overworked a little bit, which we talked about before when it comes to the lack of innings and what the bullpen's provided to this point. The offense has to show out here, and it's a big ask because you're not facing slouches. The Braves went about this and moved starters, so you were getting their three best. You're getting Schwellenbach, you're getting Sale, you're getting Strider. You got to come out swinging. And this is going to also be indicative about what the media ends up saying about you over this, over the span of this 10 games. If these 3 games against Atlanta, down in Atlanta, if you don't hit, the vultures are coming out to get you. You got to show up in these 3 games. It's huge. This series matters. It does. Not only because it's the Braves, but it's the Braves in Atlanta. It still matters. And I know we won the game last year with Lindor and everything. I know that. But that's 2024. Mm-hmm. It's 25 now. You got to go out there. You got to handle business. You're coming off of a shitty series against the Rays. You have to go out there and you got to say, we washed it. We're ready to go. And attacking someone like Schwellenbach, he's had his ups and downs. He has, but his last 2 or 3 starts, he's rounding back into the form of how he started. So again, he handled you last year for the most part in that game for 7 innings. He handled you. So now you got to go out there and say, new year, we got Juan Soto. We're getting back on track. You got to do something big here because I really think that this series, while it's important, it sets the tone for this 10 games in general.
Quick one from Armand here. Important one. Mark Vientos batting 3rd and DHing tonight for Syracuse. That is very, very, very good news.
That is good news.
Listed as a low grade strain when the injury first happened. That's important to see that he, so far, again, obviously players can always re-injure things. There can always be setbacks, but at least so far, Ibby, it seems like the very short timetable that was laid out for Mark Vientos is ringing true. And look, I know Vientos was having a bit of a sophomore slump. I know he was not having the season that a lot of people expected or wanted, including, Mark Vientos, right? He is still a big part of this lineup. He is an even bigger part of the lineup while the likes of Jesse Winker is still on the IL. I know that one's a lefty, one's a righty, but I think right now, Ibby, you've got a situation where the lion's share of the DH reps in the middle part of this season, and Winker is reportedly out for a long while still. The lion's share of the DH reps should be going to Mark Vientos or some combination of Vientos, Mauricio, and Beatty, getting all of them in the lineup and blah, 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 blah. But like we talked about last week, Vientos is the worst defender of the 3, so Vientos should be DHing most nights, and I think having him back is going to be important. It's going to lengthen the Mets lineup, especially if, I know Beatty took a little bit of a downturn, but then he had a home run and a little bit better at bats. And Mauricio's a free swinger, so he's always going to be kind of a bit up and down. But I think those 3 guys are giving you, they're going to be counted on to give you a lot. And I think the Mets will be better for having all 3 of them in the lineup. So it is nice to see Vientos is on the mend. That's all I'll say there.
Absolutely. I mean, we want to see Vientos back. We want to see him back rolling because having that power in the lineup, I know I hinted at last week with him and Mauricio, talking about that, power potential and what it, why it's needed for the back end of this lineup. Obviously, we want him back healthy and want Mark to be Mark. And, I don't know if anybody watched the On the Road series or Inside the Diamond series with the Mets, and Vientos was the highlight this past week. And, just the energy that he brings and all that, when things are rolling properly for him, he seems to be a great part of this team, a great part of this clubhouse. And the fact that he struggled to this point and it's ironic that during the episode he was talking about the importance of his health and wanting to stay on the field and things like that. And then, of course, what happens with his hammy. But thankfully, he avoided anything serious. Good to see him back in the lineup. Hopefully, he can, get his mind right. Hopefully the break has allowed him to refocus himself so he's able to come back out fresher to become the player that he knows he can be, to become the player that the Mets and the Mets fans expected him to be coming into the season.
Yeah, look, I'm happy that you brought that up because Game for War said something tangential to that, which is if Vientos stays in AAA for a bit, he'll relearn how to hit. I think, there's some tongue in cheek there, in terms of the way that thought is put out there. But Ibby, I think you're spot on, and Game for War is accurate in saying you can use this. We opened kind of talking about the phantom IL or lack thereof for Tyler McGill. But I think this is a not phantom IL. Obviously, we all saw Vientos get hurt. I think this is a fortunate timed IL if it continues to be a very short stint and he is as healthy and doesn't have any setbacks, because I think this was a guy who could desperately use a mental reset, who the Mets were not really going to send down, nor should they. I know he had struggled, but they didn't really have another place to turn. And especially when other guys got hurt, Winker and Siri, and they just don't have the ability to just churn out players constantly. So I don't think the Mets really wanted to send him down. And I don't think Vientos obviously doesn't want to go down. But I do think that there's something to be said about, hey, clear your head a bit. So I do think the timing of this IL stint, again, if it winds up being as quick as we all hope and it is on trajectory to be, I think that will ultimately be a positive for Mark Vientos. I really do. I think he's going to come back with a clearer head for sure.
I agree 100% with that. I think the time off can definitely lead towards better results, and I hope that it does happen, because I think he's clearly a guy that feeds off of that type of energy. And I think if he can just establish like a 2 or 3 game stretch where things are right, I think he can get back on track, and that's going to be a big part for this lineup moving forward.
I agree. D asking, how long is this delay? I haven't seen yet. I've been checking. The last thing I saw was that it is just going to start in a delay. But I don't know if anybody else has seen anything contrary where a timetable has been given, but I have not seen one yet. I'm sure Armand, when he sees one, will let us know because he's always on top of that stuff. Look, I want to bring this up, Ibby, because I think it's interesting. Also, Ken and Ricardo kind of getting into it in the comments. It happens. I've gotten into it with people. Ibby's gotten into it with people on the show, on whatever. So it happens. But, play nice. Try to find a common ground.
Relax, guys. It's fine. Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
But this is, I think, at the start of it, I think they both made interesting points. Ricardo, in the form, again, a little tongue-in-cheek, a little bit of a joke, Atlanta scares me even if they're 30 games back with 29 games to be played. I think a lot of Met fans share that sentiment.
Yes.
Ken said, living in the past, Ricardo, I think a lot of Met fans would share that sentiment.
Sure.
You and I, Ibby, have often on this show pushed the narrative, especially last year, especially after Stearns. In the Cohen era, yes, Lindor comes here, then you get Stearns, then you get Soto. Last year was really the culmination. You and I have been adamant. LOL Mets is dead. Dead, buried, gone forever. But in this part of the conversation, does Ken have a point? Does Ricardo have a point? Have we, in your mind, they both have a point. In your mind, have the Mets exercised the Atlanta Demons enough that Ricardo should relax, or is it too deep of a wound? Is there too much hurt, and is it not enough in the positive side of the ledger, despite what the Mets did last year yet? Like, where are you on this debate?
I would say that
I'll call it a debate, but they are arguing. But let's
I'll put it like this. I think you can put stuff to like that to rest, like really to rest. If the Mets can do what they're supposed to do, this season. Like right now, the Braves are as far out as they are. The Mets are in first. The Mets are regarded as one of the top teams in baseball. You're going to Atlanta, go there and beat them. Win 2-3, sweep the series, like do what you're supposed to do. That's something that Mets fans want to see in order to calm themselves down. Because if the Mets go out there and lose the series 2-3, or God forbid get swept, now you're like, we'll never get over this hump. It doesn't matter. Same thing, different, change whatever. It doesn't matter. Same result always happens. So I understand. Even though I'm of the thought process of new regime, I don't believe in curses and things like that. But ultimately, you still got to go out there and you got to win ball games. Like that's the name of the game. You got to go out there and you got to win. So I understand why Mets fans have a reserve when it comes to Atlanta and the house of horrors that playing in Atlanta has had over their entire fandom. So I understand. But I think that it would really do this team well and do the fan base well if this Mets club can go to Atlanta right now and take 2 or 3 to like really put to bed some of these worries, mainly because of where they are in the standings. This isn't the first place Atlanta Braves. This isn't you walking in saying that we're going to get our asses kicked. This is more along the lines of saying we're walking into Atlanta and we should kick their ass. Like that's the way it should be.
Right. I think just to further that, there are 2 comments that I think are great points in this debate. Truman Quinn says, we used to exhaust ourselves trying to beat the Braves and then miss the playoffs. And it's the analogy that I always use in basketball. You get down early by a large number, and then next thing you know, late in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter, you go down from being down, 28 points to getting it within a point or 2. And then next thing you know, you lose by 11. Because you exhaust all of your energy trying to mount this comeback when there's still a game. And I think you can apply that logic, or you can apply that analogy to a lot of things in sports. And honestly, sometimes in life, you just burn out, man. It's like you can only play catch up, Ibby, for so long before you're like, I did it. Like I shot my shot and I got close, but I just, that's what I had. The comeback was what I had. And I can't get past that. And I think that's very, very true of what the Mets and the Braves have been historically. And I think what Carlos Ramos says, sorry to block you again, is kind of what you just said. I understand the Braves have struggled this year, but this upcoming series is more about us than them. The Mets still don't know how good they are or can be, and it's a huge test for us, not for them. There's some overlapping thoughts in this comment, similar to what you said. But let me ask you this. Do you think this is more of a test for the Mets than it is for the Braves because of history?
Yes, I do. I think you have to go. I think because of what I just said before, like this team is where they are and the Braves are where they are, and you have a chance to put the foot on the throat and take them out of this discussion, because there's still something in the back of whether it's the Mets minds, the Mets fans mind, that because of where they are, because how the series is set up, if the Braves sweep, they're right back in the hunt, and then they're going to be on the tail of the Mets, and they have better pitching, and they have more experience, and this and that. They're going to fall apart. So, yeah, I do think that this is more so the Mets needing to come in here and realize that the Braves are where they are for a reason. You should be able to walk in here and win. This is a battle against yourself, saying, we know who we are, or we should know or we should start establishing who we are as an offense, as a bullpen, as starters to what we've done to this point. We need to go out there. We need to win. So yes, you're saying this, but it's basically like you're looking yourself in the mirror and you're saying, this is what I am. I know what I can be. I know what I'm supposed to do here. So go out there and do it. Don't allow history to placate what's going to happen to you. Go out there and fucking beat them. Like, that's it. It's the truth. I mean, I don't curse that often, but like when I do, it's within reason, because it carries more weight. And it's like, you should go out there and you should win this series. There's no reason why you shouldn't take 2 or 3 here. I don't care who's pitching for them. You should take 2 or 3.
Absolutely. Ibby, we're just at an hour and a half. We're 1 minute or thereabouts shy of what we said we were going to do, which was like 7:10. Yeah. We still don't have a start time for the Mets game, but obviously we're not going to just go up until the Mets game. So I will ask you this way. First question, anything we didn't get to that you want to hit on that might have been in the crawl, or just something that you want to make sure that you get out there? And then if not, I've got a follow-up last thing to ask you.
The only thing I wanted to put out there was just with Kodai Senga, 5 weeks, best case scenario. And I'm not sure if that 5 weeks is based off of the injury just itself. I know Carlos Mendoza said that he's going to be keeping his arm fresh. But the one thing I will caution fans with is when 5 weeks is said, I'm not sure if that's just simply for the hammy or if they baked in 5 weeks with what they feel Kodai often does when he won't do something unless he is 100%. So I just say, I caution you at the 5 weeks. It's the best case scenario. The good thing is we didn't lose him for the season. It sucks that it happened, but we didn't lose him for the season.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Here's the last thing. 10 games. We will record again before the 10-game stretch is over, obviously, because that's how weeks work. But 10 games. Your thoughts on what the Mets record will be over the course of the next 10 games?
6-4.
Okay.
6-4.
Okay. I am going to be a bit more pessimistic and go for the push. 5-5. More of the games are on the road than at home. And you know what? Get us a split of the 5. Keep everything status quo and I'll be fine. And I think that's a reasonable ask.
I think it is too. I do.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable ask just considering where the pitching is right now. I mean, look, any game on any day, anybody could beat anybody, right? Paul Blackburn versus the Dodgers, Griffin Canning versus the Dodgers. Right, sure. Maybe you can't look at this any other way than the Mets are at a distinct starting pitching disadvantage this series versus the Braves. Zach Wheeler is not going to go during their 4-game set that they're in right now with, I think, Miami or whoever they're about to play or are playing. So the Mets are going to see Zach Wheeler when they go to Philly. And then the way the rotation should shake out, the Mets are probably going to see 2 of these starters again when the Mets come back home to play the Braves. So that all being said, I'm not being a pessimist. I will take anything over 5-5.
Of course, yes.
I'm not even going to beat. If the Mets get out of this 10-game stretch at 500, I am not even going to be upset. And when we record, I guess, now that I think about it, the way the math works out, Ibby, we're going to do the show next Wednesday. So we're going to be through like 9 of those games.
Yeah.
So we'll know for the most part where they're going to be as far as that's concerned. We'll either be ecstatic, right? Or we're going to be kind of let down, or we're going to be right there where it's like, I think when we record next week on Wednesday, going into that final game against the Braves at home, I think the Mets are going to be right on that edge of, will they be 500? Will they be a game like, will they be 5-5? Will they be 6-4? Will they be 4-6? I think they're going to be on that brink. That I think is going to be the case. They're either going to be playing to get to 500. They're either going to be playing to, be just over or just under. Like my gut is that's where they're going to be when we record a week from today.
To Stevie Mac's point, saying how it's going to get hot and the weather's going to turn. I know it's going to get into the hundreds this weekend and into early next week. I know people are talking about the consistency of the offense and hasn't been there. I think that with turning of the weather, I think the ball's going to fly a little bit more. Now, granted, our pitching against the Phillies in that park could also be an issue, but I do think that that's why I'm a little bit more on the positive side for the 6-4, because I do think that the bats can wake up here and some of the balls can fly out of the yard, and hopefully they can do some damage when guys are actually on base. But I do think that the ball's going to fly moving forward.
Ibby, the ball flying out of the yard, we've been over this. It depends on the thickness of the mud at the Delaware Water Gap. And that is the only thing it depends on, because apparently, the rest of the world lives in 2025 and in the 21st century. Major League Baseball thinks that it's 1893 and that the only way to get baseballs made is to stitch them by hand so that there's inconsistency in the height of the laces. And
America's pastime, John. Have some respect.
And the only way to get grip on the ball is to have, I don't know, some farmer rub dirt on it, like basically is what happens. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. The real process is that the water from the Delaware River secret location gets sent to every team, and usually the clubhouse person does it, or somebody from the home team's clubhouse personnel, and then it is checked and overseen by somebody from Major League Baseball. I know that's the process because I did it, but that is the actual process. But be that as it may, the process is insane, Ibby. I do not understand how in the year 2025, and I think it was Ben Yole who tweeted something out, and then Andrew McCutcheon quote tweeted it saying, like, I was told that this is an issue and they can't fix it for the rest of the year, and the height of the laces preventing the ball from flying 4 feet further than it normally would, which, by the way, fuck you. Soto should have tied that game on Friday night against the Rays. Everything about that looked like a home run, Ibby. Everything about that, where the ball was, how he hit it, how he swung, how he posed, the launch angle, the depth, the distance, it all looked like a home run until it wasn't, which is insane. That is absolutely stupefying. But I will say this, every other league, every other major baseball league around the world, the KBO, their balls get mass produced. They're inherently sticky. I don't understand why Major League Baseball continues to tinker with the ball. Either it's juiced or it's dead, or it's somewhere in between, or the laces are too high, or the laces are too low, or the ball's not sticky enough, or it's too sticky, or the glove is too sticky, or the player is too sticky or too sweaty, or is wearing too much sunblock. It is nonsense. This is the dumbest thing. I cannot believe that we're still having this conversation in the year 2025. This is the most fucking archaic analog way to treat a sport. Like, I cannot believe it. It is maddening. Sorry. That's insane.
It's all good. I mean, the only thing I'll say on that is just that I think that it's all done, with my tinfoil hat on. I do believe that all this is being done to drive down offense, so owners don't have to pay players what they think based off of their offensive lines because of the change in contracts, because of the change of contracts when it comes to Soto and Vlad and the upcoming guys like Kyle Tucker and things like that. I do think that there's a coup, if you will, going on amongst owners and Rob Manfred to try and save money, if you will, especially with the idea of an impending lockout. But that's me wearing my tinfoil hat, and I apologize for putting that out in the open, but that's how I feel, and I think it's the truth. The last final thing I'll say.
Wait. I'm sorry. Yeah. Can I ask you a question? I know you have to go. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Would you, I'm putting you on the spot, would you, Matt Ibanez, nobody else, would you accept a salary cap and a salary floor right now if I told you, starting for next season?
Yeah.
If I told you that also starting next season, all Major League Baseballs were going to be mass produced the way that they are in the KBO, and there would be no more altering and there would be no more changing of them, would you sacrifice a salary cap, also knowing that you're going to get a salary floor, so it will raise competitive balance and all that stuff? But would you take a salary cap and a salary floor starting in 2026 to avoid a lockout and to make sure that moving forward in time forever, the baseballs are never altered again?
No.
Okay.
I would not because I honestly, I think that it's a joke that it has to, it's even gotten to this point because there's been more parity in the sport of baseball over the last 25 years than any other sport, and every other cap sport has had more dynasties and more singular teams dominating it as opposed to baseball. Stop crying poor, stop being cheap, spend your fucking money, and let's go.
I agree. I just thought it was a worthwhile conversation, and I will let Odd Villain's answer represent my answer. In the words of Raffy Devers, no. Man, this has been an awesome show. Super fun. Let me just say one more time. I am going to be, yes, thank you, Armand. Sorry. MLB is a $12 billion industry. Fuck off. Just change the baseballs for the sake of changing the baseballs and doing the game the right way. Fuck your salary floor. Fuck your salary cap. Anyway, maybe let me remind everybody, Monday night against the Braves. I believe that's the 23rd, if I'm not mistaken. Monday night. Yes, Monday, June 23rd against the Braves when the Mets return home. I will be in the house. I will be there with Joe Pereno, who's the host of the Dirty Sports podcast, 3-time guest on Til Mets Do Us Part. Ibby is going to try like hell to make that game as well. So let me know hit me up on Twitter in the DMs, hit me up on Instagram in the DMs, whatever. A lot of folks who I would love to have the opportunity to meet that I have not had the chance to meet. If Aunt Rivera is still here, hope Aunt Rivera can make it to the game. I know I already spoke to Keith from Shea and Sons. Keith is going to be there. So, we're going to do something. It's going to be fun. I want to take in the game. I want to be back at Citi Field. I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to be there. So, Ibby, I hope you can make it too. I know, again, I'm not trying to put pressure on you. I know that the logistics are crazy for you where you live and the kids and everything, but I'm definitely going to be there. I'm looking forward to being there. Hopefully Ibby will too. And on that note, hopefully all of you guys will be there as well. So that said, I'm John. That's Ibby. This is Til Mets Do Us Part. See us next week, Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern in our regular scheduled time. See me, maybe Ibby, on Monday the 23rd at Citi Field watching our New York Mets. See you next time. Till then, LFGM. Peace.